Welcome to episode 11 of The Leap Home, Disco Inferno.
In this week's episode, Sam leaps into a stuntman who has the simple task of keeping his little brother alive for 48 hours, while sorting out a little family drama. With his brother feeling the pressure of following in the footsteps of his stuntman father and his stuntman father before him, it seems as though his musical talent may go to waste unrecognised. In an effort to prove his masculinity, he takes on a dangerous stunt on a set even Alec Baldwin would recognise as coming up short on safety. But can Sam get through to him in time, or will his manliness prove his undoing?
You had a purse. Get out of here, purse. This is a man bag. You owned a man bag? Yeah, my pants were always too tight to carry a wallet.
Good evening, Ian. How are we?
Not too bad, Gerry. How are you, and how's your man bag?
It's not a man bag, it's a purse.
And what are you keeping in it?
Pursy things.
Garbage.
A little,
accumulated garbage.
Some water and a little fan, I think is what we need. Very warm today.
Yes, it's the warmest day in history, apparently.
In the UK, yeah. It's not quite breaking those records in Scotland, but it's pretty bad.
It is bad. It's unbearable, I would say.
Was it down in London about 39 degrees?
It's past 40 at one point.
Was it?
Yeah.
Up here I think it hit about 33.
That's close to the record, I think.
Yeah. Doesn't sound a lot probably if you come from like Texas or Australia, but you have to understand we are not built for this here.
We don't have the infrastructure.
We don't. No, I don't know anyone with an air-conditioned home, do you? Built in.
Well, there's one near my house that you can see the unit on the outside wall, but even then that's going to condition one room.
Yeah, it's only modern new builds, quite fancy new builds.
Yeah.
Most people's houses don't have any sort. There's no need for it most of the time.
Well, there will be now with climate change and everything. Folk will have to start putting them in.
Yeah.
I saw a weather map for July 2050. There's going to be 38 up here, 45 in London. That's in our lifetime.
Do you know what's nice? I love doing.
What's that?
During heat waves, going into a supermarket, the frozen aisle of a supermarket, and just
getting into the freezer.
Just browsing. Just
someone picks up the chips and it's your face.
Yeah, just sliding up beside it.
Just putting perch in your arse on the edge of the freezer.
Getting my peas beside the peas. Anyway.
Why are you holding those sweet corns so tightly? One
of life's little pleasure, that is.
Indeed.
So I think we'll have to make this episode a shortish one. It's getting it's a bit clammy here.
Fortunately, there's not much to talk about.
Well, I was going to say, it's fortunately it's an episode, that I didn't love, I must admit.
There were some classic 70s outfits, certainly at the start of it. Did that take you back to your youth?
Very good. You know me, I love a movie or a TV show that's set on a set.
Yes, you do. You've mentioned it many times in Columbo.
Yeah.
Fade into Murder, Mirror, Smoke and Shadows, what was it? Murder, Smoke and Shadows. Yeah.
But this it felt like quite a flimsy episode. I don't know. The stakes were never particularly high. I thought that there's a big issue with the leap igniter, which we can discuss when we get there.
Most of the characters were kind of thinly drawn. Yeah,
and the downside of the person he's there to save, it wasn't that much of a downside. It was like two. In fact, you could argue, and I probably will when we get there, that Ray's choice may well be the more sensible one.
Perhaps. Now that we've irritated everybody, we should tell them where they can abuse us. It's on social media. We are at Leap Home Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. We're at The Leap Home on Facebook. Our website, where there's a post up for each episode, is theleaphome.com, and you can catch them all 1 week early, as ever, on our YouTube channel at Columbo Podcast Productions. Please hit the subscribe and the wee bell there so that you hear about every episode as soon as it is released, and leave us a wee review on Apple Podcasts if you are inclined to do so, or even if you are not.
And don't forget about the Snapchat.
Sure, everybody has. Shall we take a look at this episode?
Let's crack on.
Similar sort of style to last week, we get a quick hit recap of a previous episode, this time using the metaphor of a high school prom before the leap that we saw at the end of the previous episode, where he joins a dance in a white suit with his finger extended.
Yeah, to the sound of Casey and the Sunshine Band. Now, this episode, I think you'll probably have trivia. There's a lot of well-known songs in this episode, and it's caused a problem for the clips, because if we try to put any on YouTube using those clips in the background, it's not going to work.
Copyright strikes, yep. I should point out, I don't intend in the trivia to list all the songs. I mean, folk know Kung Fu Fighting when they hear it.
Okay.
I've just pronounced that wrong, sound like I'm on it. Folk know Kung Fu Fighting when they hear it. They don't need me to say at the end of that was Kung Fu Fighting.
I am going to keep that in. So, anyway, you think I'm joking? Where are we?
On the dance floor, where Sam stands looking very awkward while a woman dances around him.
Yeah, she writhes over him, and we see an older man in a hat enter before Sam notices his massive gold platform boots. Those look horrendous.
Sam, we hear from his articulated thoughts, is not happy. He doesn't like the 70s and he doesn't like disco.
Disco sucks. That was a big phenomenon back in the day.
And it's true today.
He tries to shuffle as the girls continue to rub against him, and I think he wishes he was rather dead. And
yeah, he says, well, we hear his thoughts, I'd rather be dead. And at that point, his wish is granted as he's blown away by the man in the hat.
Yeah, he pulls out a shotgun, and Sam flies backwards after a direct shot to the torso. I think we have to give that as the most dramatic opening of an episode so far.
It certainly is, because it looks like it hurt.
Oh yeah, for sure. We then get the credits and we return to the dance floor where we see him lying with his guts open, but it's revealed to be an old trope.
Well, he thinks he's been hit. He says, I've been hit.
Yeah.
But it's acting. They're acting. He's a stunt guy.
That's a good point, actually. I didn't think about that. As far as Sam's concerned, for that brief few moments.
Yeah, he thinks he's been shot by a guy in a bar or a dance hall, yeah.
Yeah. Although he would have been aware of all the TV cameras facing him.
Well, you would think.
Although it could have been a shoot for a song, a dance video, or a...
You just don't know what he's noticed, I suppose.
Yeah.
We learn from a caption that it is April the 1st, 1976, and there's a bit of drama because apparently the stunt hasn't quite gone to plan.
Yeah, the date's quite appropriate. I mean, it played a trick on us, didn't it, the audience?
Well, there's that. I think Sam even brings it up a wee bit later on.
Yes.
The stunt coordinator, who turns out to be Sam's father, Ray, is having a go at his young colleague, who turns out to be Sam's brother, Chris, because the safety mat wasn't in quite the right place and Sam could have been injured.
Yeah, we find out that the director of this movie is a bit slapshot and doesn't really care for health and safety too much.
No.
A chancer.
Absolutely. Be shut down these days, you would hope.
Yeah, for sure. So, what happens?
The director's eager to move on. He just wants to get his schedule met. He doesn't care whether anybody's been hurt. So the coordinator pulls everybody on the stunt team off the set.
The director, however, reminds Chris that he's just getting started in the industry and asks him if he's going to stay. But after hesitating, I think he looks at his father and brother and decides that he also has to walk.
Indeed.
Clearly, however, it's not his choice.
Well, yeah, I think he feels pressured into going along with what they have decided.
We're at the side of the set now, where Chris insists to Sam that he double-checked the stunt. I think he feels as if perhaps he was going to get the blame for it.
Well, he was the one that was getting it in the ear from his dad.
But Sam tells him to forget it, and is then surprised to hear that he is a family member.
Well, indeed, he's picking up. This is his little brother.
Chris, he's not happy, as he was about to get his stunt card, the stunt union card, and asks Sam to try and change their dad's mind.
He does, but I think Sam's not interested in going against the grain here.
He doesn't know what his goal is in his leap, so he probably doesn't want to commit to anything.
Yeah, trying to hedge.
At this point.
Yeah.
Now, just then, we're introduced to quite the character.
Tracy.
A music executive.
She comes up to Sam, says he's a bit crazy and she likes that.
She doesn't in any way try to hide her attraction, her lust for Sam. And
you see Chris's mood changes. He starts chipping in to boost his brother a wee bit.
Yeah.
Says he's done stunts you wouldn't even imagine. And she says, I've got quite a vivid imagination.
Yep. And I think it's mentioned that he's broke every bone in his body, and so she looks up and down and says, what, every bone? I mean, that's not a bone, but, well.
What are you talking about? Yes, and she starts talking about star signs and stuff like this. I think Sam's turned off immediately by her airy-fairy 70s approach to things.
Yeah, I mean, she leads them off to the sort of catering table to get a drink, but there is tension when a redhead asks Chad, that's
who Sam is, yeah,
who his new friend is, and after he introduces her to Tracy, the redhead doesn't appreciate his memory blank on her.
Yes, especially as he didn't blank on her last night.
Yeah, and his trailer. So how does she react?
She throws her drink in his face before leaving with a caustic, "Nice to meet you."
They then sit at the bar on the set, and
Why is there a bar on the set?
well, they're in a disco.
Is it the set's bar?
No, they're in a
It's part of the set, I mean.
yes, they're in a disco, aren't
How
they?
are they getting served drinks from a prop bar?
I don't know. Do they get served drinks?
Well, not Tracy, the other woman had a drink.
Yeah, she was at the
Tracy.
catering table. It wasn't the bar.
Okay.
He, for the first time, sees his reflection in this mirror,
Yeah, he stares at it long enough for Tracy to notice.
and he seems a rugged, good-looking big
Well, he's
lump.
always got an opinion on the aesthetics of who he's leaped into. He likes to be a handsome man, I think.
Well, you would do, wouldn't you?
Yeah, he wouldn't want to be a runt like
No.
he's been in the past.
Yeah. And at this point, Tracy laughs at his hickey on his neck before she gives him a mood ring, which he rightly thinks is a lot of old nonsense.
He says it's from the self-obsessed 70s when everyone wanted to get in touch with their feelings. That's a little bit harsh.
This is interesting. His time is the early 90s, so he's lived through the 80s, experienced the 80s, although at that point, it's still really the 80s. You know, the 80s don't change at the turn of the calendar. So effectively,
Sure.
the early 90s is still the 80s vibe. Now, the 80s is a decade, you know, the yuppies and the lunches for wimps, the Gordon Gekko, Wall Street, all that type of stuff. That was regarded as the
Mental
era.
health is weakness.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
That was more an era where 70s is still a bit of, you know, love, free love and flower power and all that type of stuff. So
60s carryover.
yeah, I'm not sure you compare the 70s more or less favourably than the 80s. Anyway,
She then reads this mood ring and says that he must be tense, disoriented and harassed, which makes him think that it maybe works after all.
yeah. Linger after him as he gets up and walks onto the dance floor where he sees Al doing the hustle.
Yeah,
And
I've
he
got a note saying it must be about time for Al to show up.
Yeah. And he shouts on him to quit it. Meanwhile, on the set, Chris is approached by a young woman himself who is not a fan of Sam's style, but when hearing he is his brother, she remarks that bad taste obviously isn't genetic.
Yeah, and then when I think, is it right now, he asks her to describe what she is attracted to and she just describes Chris.
I mean, I think this is nice and I think he deserves this. You can imagine, well, we find out that he has grown up in his brother's shadow.
Sure.
He's been a successful one, the ladies love him, and he's always, I suppose, feeling a bit undervalued or second choice.
Sure. She comments at this point about Sam talking to himself, because obviously he's over the other side of the room talking to Al.
He says, yeah, he's a bit crazy and girls tend to go for that.
Not her.
Nope.
We didn't get her name yet, did we?
Not yet, but it's Shannon, I think we find.
Yeah, that's actually the actress's mother's name.
Is it?
Yeah, it's not good enough trivia to save.
No, that would be terrible.
Up on the mezzanine.
Yes. Looking down on the practicing dancers, Sam is stressing about what he has to do, but Al, he tries to dismiss it as nothing more than Disco Inferno, a low-budget disaster movie. Don't get worried about these sort of things.
But Al also wants to know what's not to like about the 70s.
Yeah, he's got the opposite view from Sam. He thinks it was the best decade, unless disco and edible undies among some of the reasons why this is the case.
He's just a pervert.
Yes.
Sam can't get this mood ring off his finger and laments. At this point, he's being very judgmental. Everyone in the 70s having the morality of two dogs in the park.
Oh, well,
That'd be more a 60s thing.
Or, let's say, more like the 80s, the whole looking after number one. And
Anyhow, Al says it looks like he's in a bad mood and tells him he's in Berkeley, California. It's April the 1st.
No, not Barclay, Burbank.
Burbank, I thought I said Berkeley.
Nope, Burbank's where the studios are.
Apologies.
Mm-hmm.
It's April the 1st, 1976, which causes Sam to ask whether he's the butt of a cosmic April Fool's joke.
Unfortunately, Ziggy crashed recently, which caused all sorts of issues, such as the staff of the project getting inflated wages, which
Massive overpayments,
yeah,
yes.
which resulted in many of them rushing off on vacation. Now that doesn't ring true, because you still have to book holiday. You can't just leave the next day.
Yeah, and also they'd be entitled to get their money back.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a funny line.
Although we find out that Al, he didn't partake in this.
No, because being in the 70s is like a vacation for him.
Yes. I think he says he always wanted to be in the movies,
Indeed.
which is quite a nice sort of nod to Dean Stockwell, who's always been in the movies since he was a kid.
Of course.
Ziggy did, however, manage to provide one piece of information.
He did.
Chris is going to die in the next 2 days. However, there is no more data on it. He doesn't know how, when, why.
He won't know until Ziggy gets fixed.
This, however, seems to stir a memory in Sam.
He dies? How?
I don't know.
Cut it.
Well,
Cut it.
when?
I don't know.
Where?
I don't know.
Will you find out?
I don't know anything until Ziggy gets fixed. And in the meantime, you just gotta play Big Brother for a couple of days. Make sure Chris doesn't do any stunts or race any fast cars or, you know, that he doesn't... What?
Al, I have a big brother.
I was wondering when you were gonna remember that.
Tom. His name is Tom. How can I forget that I have a brother?
The leap Swiss cheesed your memory.
I don't remember anything about him. Where is he? What's he doing?
Sam, you know the rules. I can't tell you any of that.
I don't remember anything. Come on, Al, help me.
Sam, just worry about the little brother down there who's gonna die. 2 days.
Did you guess by the score that it wasn't going to be good news with regards to the...
Yeah, it was pretty obvious, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember this episode, so but I think it was pretty obvious, yeah. Yeah, next day at a trailer, a female, is it a star or a stuntwoman?
Some kind of actress.
Extra,
Anyway.
yeah.
She's fetched from her trailer and makes some eyes at Sam on her way past. And
It's
a wee
more-
comment, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's more than that, a bit of an ego boost by telling him he looks dynamite before Ray and Chris appear with the former laying down the law and telling his son that he has to do as he's told if he wants to work with him.
Yeah, Chris wanted to do that extra day of work on the dodgy set.
Chris leaves and Sam tries to get their dad to ease up on him, but he doesn't think it's the career for pussyfooting around.
Yeah, his way or the highway, essentially.
At this point, Chris returns and Ray has a bit of play fighting with him to show that there are no hard feelings, and explains that the director takes too many risks and he will get his shot soon enough. Now, see, this is the thing I mentioned at the start. I don't really think that the reason for this leap to change something is good enough. His dad, I mean, Ray is old school, right? We'll say that he's old school, but
He's a stereotype.
he's not like an abusive father. He's not, in the sense that, you know, he clearly loves him there, and he realised, he accepted at that point, yeah, you know what, I was a bit harsh, and he tries that whole play fighting thing. He react, you know, that's the type of way that those guys act. And
Yeah, it's a very sort of manly, we don't talk about feelings, but, you know, it's understood.
yeah, so there's, yeah, exactly. So I don't think he's a bad guy.
Sure.
And I think as well, you know, when we realise what his son wants to do, that's fairly typical. You know, you've got a career here, or you can go off and do this. For the father to want him to stay in the business isn't.
Yeah.
It's not unreasonable.
They get into a discussion about this big stunt on the movie that they're doing tomorrow. In fact, Ray is even supportive of the idea that Chris might get to do it.
Yes, however, Sam refuses, even when he's told it's just a little fall. But he does try and promise that, you know, the next time Chris can get involved. So he storms off again, and it is now Ray who is on Chris's side and points out that it's a fairly simple stunt, all things considered.
Nevertheless, Sam goes after Chris, and they drive off in the Corvette at high speed, with Sam commenting on the old new 8-track tapes that he finds.
He doesn't even tell him to put his seatbelt on. So this is Al actually mentioned this.
Yeah, don't let him
Don't
drive fast cars, yeah. But he does.
Straight away. Rubbish at this.
Terrible.
We eventually arrive at their apartment. I think Chris and Sam share a place.
It looks that way. So we get a bit of narration from Sam, who says that Chris drove home with him nagging about the speed all the way, so maybe that covers your point.
Perhaps.
He talks about the times that he resented Tom telling him what to do, and now realises it's just the job of being a big brother.
And at this point, he looks at a photo of himself and Chris, and he recalls that Tom was a basketball player and that something happened in 1964. He wants to remember, but I think he realised himself that it's perhaps not a great memory.
And he can't quite make the connection anyway.
He is brought round from his daydream by the sound of Chris playing the electric guitar in his bedroom. So he wanders off to see what's going on.
He does. Chris objects to Sam coming in without knocking, but Sam tells him that he's really good.
Yeah, and they should keep at it. I mean, it's a sort of country and western type sound, because this disco garbage that Chris refers to will be dead in a few years' time.
Yes, and all the disco fans will be urban cowboys. I think that's a Travolta reference.
Yes.
Chris asks again about this stunt that's coming up, and Sam insists that it will be him who does it. He goes on to explain that big brothers sometimes do things that little brothers don't understand, and he gives an example from his own life, but sets up as another pair of brothers.
Yeah, he talks about two brothers who he knew. One was gifted in sports, and the other one academically, and the younger physicist wanted to be like his jock big brother, but he was encouraged to stick to the academia, and he eventually went to MIT. Now,
And won a Nobel Prize.
yeah, well, there we go. Yeah, I mean, that's something we learned this episode.
Yeah.
Now, Chris must know that you didn't know about these two brothers. I mean, they live
'Cause he would
together.
know, yeah.
You would know. Like, who are these two brothers that you knew? Why you tell me this
What's their
story?
names?
Yeah, I've got another. It's more evident later in the episode, but I still think that Sam really has to pull his act together when it comes to keeping in character when he leaps.
Yeah. Anyway, Chris says that he's never going to win a Grammy, and Sam tells him, you just don't know unless you try.
The doorbell goes, and Chris is ecstatic.
Yes. Who is it?
It's Shannon, the girl from the set earlier. She's actually showed up, but he then quickly remembers to ask Sam not to hit on her like normal. So again, we have to assume that Sam's a bit of a dick.
Yeah, that's exactly the right answer, yeah. But he promises on this occasion not to do so.
In the living room, we find them laughing and watching classic Aykroyd, Belushi and Chase Saturday Night Live.
Got some trivia for this later.
Have you good? And Sam does a Marty McFly and tells them what's coming next.
Indeed.
Now, see this, I remember as a kid growing up, I had ABC, which was Aykroyd, Belushi and Chase, the best of them from the early season. And as you know, and I've said in the podcast before, Chevy, big hero of mine. In fact, I went down to see Chevy Chase in London a few years ago, doing an evening with. That was a disaster, but not because of Chevy. Anyway.
When you signed up for Brexit, wasn't it?
What?
They got you to sign up at the door. The guy that was presenting it was a massive Brexit.
Oh, he was a massive gammon, yeah. But yeah, that was just a ridiculous interview. Anyway, we'll not go over that again, those old ones. But Chevy's, and I've showed you I think before, there's some brilliant videos on YouTube. He's the greatest fall guy in TV history. His falls are legendary.
Better than Norman Wisdom?
Yeah, oh yeah. Took it to another level. Ooh. And apparently as well, he didn't realise that most of the people who he'd watched doing would be padded up.
So he was just doing it without it?
He would do it, and I think at one point a stuntman said to him, so what are you using? And he said, what do you mean? He says, figure falls, do you use this and that? And he says, no, I just fall. And the stuntman was like, okay.
Backs away slowly.
Yeah.
Sam starts talking now about President Ford and Jimmy Carter, and Shannon says that she is working for the League of Women Voters and she can get them special passes for President Ford's upcoming visit. Sam eagerly agrees, but this confuses Chris.
Yeah, now this is what I mentioned a moment ago. Really, Sam, think about the person that you're in here. Think about the body and how they would react. You can't start.
Yeah, but from Chris's point of view, he's just hitting on her.
Oh yeah, Chris thinks he's just saying
the thing
this.
that he said he wouldn't do. Yeah.
Sam really needs to give himself a shake. And I know he has to change things, but you tweak slightly. You don't, you do as little, the butterfly effect and all that type of stuff, changing time.
Sure.
Do as little as possible to change how history unfurls itself.
Sam claims to have always had a secret interest in politics, but Chris tells him the last time he voted, it was for Homecoming King, and he voted for himself twice.
So realising there's a bit of tension there, Sam decides to go out onto I think he notices Al
outside
on the balcony, and he excuses himself for some fresh air.
Chris tells him to take his time.
Al apparently is now dressed for the times.
Yeah, he's gone home, he's picked out his clothes from the 70s and put them on, come back to work and come to meet Sam. Even though only Sam can see him. The other folk who are actually dressed for the 70s can't see him. And Sam hates stuff from the 70s.
No, fair play to Al. He can still fit for a start into that.
Yeah,
and he pulls it off. He does. Dean Stockwell's a sort of 70s guy. That was probably his peak, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably. We heard at the top of the show the quote about the man bag. That's this point.
In any case, we find out that Al is still having problems with Ziggy, who is now communicating in Japanese, but Sam is more interested in how he died.
Who?
What do you mean, who? Chris.
Chris.
Yeah.
Well, we're checking on that. We know that it happened sometime in the next 2 days.
Al, this kid has got a future. From what I just heard, it's in music.
You like the kid, huh?
Well, yeah. Kind of has that same drive to prove himself that I had with Tom. You know that Tom talked me into going to MIT?
Really?
Yeah.
No. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I remember it when I was talking with Chris.
Hey, tomorrow you're on the Earthquake set. Chuck Heston, Lauren Green, and Ava Gardner.
Yeah, I know, Ava Gardner. And I'm supposed to be doing a stunt, and I don't even know what it is.
Well, the stunt?
Yeah.
Oh, I hear it's just a little fall.
Of course, it is a little fall for a stuntman, but not a wig-wearing physicist whose leaps are generally more extra-dimensional.
Well, indeed. We should mention before we move on, just before that clip, Al says that the outfit he showed up in was his... the only thing that got him more women than that outfit was his spacesuit. So we're talking about... This is maybe how his post-astronaut career went.
Yeah.
Still, the next day on this set...
Well, yeah, it's a skyscraper he's up, not so much a set. It's a real...
Oh yeah, well, as you say, it's not the sort of fall that he maybe anticipated when he heard the description. He doesn't think he can do it.
No, he moans to Al, who's there, just as a female stuntwoman approaches, and she is not happy, with the lack of recognition, especially after the Poseidon Adventure rap party.
I don't understand what's happening here. Are they filming?
I don't know. No, they can't be filming, because, well, they're not mic'd up. They don't have any dialogue. They're stunt people.
No, and after this exchange, and annoyed at his failure to recall her name, I think she says they went to the party as a clam and Aquaman. She then makes a comment about a flying fish, shoves him and jumps off the building. This
scene is the biggest nonsense in the entire episode, because even with Dodgy Dave into the director's role, stunts are very choreographed.
Yes.
Safety, it should be paramount.
Sam would know whether he's meant to hang on to the beam or whether he's meant to...
And you have to do exactly what you're meant to do. Yeah, it's not something ad hoc that on the spur of the moment I'll hang or I'll jump or I'll do a backflip. Everything would have been worked out. Even if the director doesn't, the stuntman has responsibility for himself. So he'll be thinking, right, how am I going to do this? What do I need to do? And as another stunt person to push him, she would be certainly sacked, never working stunts again.
Unless that's part of the stunt, but he should know that.
No, it's not part of the stunt. They're just chatting and he's obviously not ready for it. Yeah, I thought that was disgraceful.
Yeah. So
and in fact, I mean, she could potentially be jailed for that. I mean, that's what would be the dangerous and hazard, putting people's life at risk. It's a nonsense. Anyway.
Yeah, so he's hanging on to this steel beam at this point, and Al is more interested in Ben Cartwright.
Yes, from Bonanza, who is about to save him. But instead, Sam slips and crashes through the window before landing on an air mat. Now,
it's quite a long fall.
It was a very long fall, and that's actually, I'm guessing, looking at it, that's a clip from Earthquake.
The intercut footage from the movie, yeah.
Yeah, because Ben Cartwright, the actor, was there. Although, interestingly, uncredited, whereas from SNL, they were given...
Well, they were listed,
but...
It's supposed to do with the rights and how they got the rights and stuff like that. Gerald Ford wasn't credited either.
Was he not?
Don't think so.
It might be that Aykroyd, Belushi and Chase were still alive and due royalties, whereas I don't know what happens if you use someone who's dead and they're not, maybe not.
Maybe.
Well, Ford wouldn't be entitled to royalties because
it's just news footage, it's not his, he doesn't own it.
Exactly. Anyway, sorry, where were we? He gets up and
he's kind of groggy.
Well, he would be.
And I think the woman who shoved him comes over and says, once a screamer, always a screamer, and then walks off.
Yeah.
And Chris looks a bit disgruntled in the background.
Back to the apartment. Chris is still raging that he wasn't allowed to do the stunt and insists that his stunt card is what he wants and music is just a hobby to him.
Sam tells him he's wrong about what he wants, he should listen to his brother, who says he should focus on music.
Yeah. See, this is the thing as well. I'm never 100%...
Chris's views aren't really listened to here.
They're not listened to, and I'm not really convinced that he is... At the start of the episode, see, that's the thing. How this would have been more acceptable or more believable if his father was pushing him to do this and Chris was saying, oh, okay, Dad, I don't really want to do it. I want to do music. And
he's
his father,
enthusiastic about doing it. Yeah, he wants to
desperate to get his stunt card. That's the whole thing. Can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do this?
Yeah.
So Sam was just turning things around, obviously because he's meant to
die.
He's meant to die, but he doesn't know he's meant to die in a stunt. However,
no. Yeah. So Sam tells him it will take more courage to make a music career than it would to jump off a building. And Chris says, "What do you know about the music business?"
Again, this is why would Sam think this sort of advice would be taken seriously from his character?
That's quite a nice segue because we go then to a nightclub where Sam is with Tracy, who is part of the music industry.
Yeah, it's like a roadhouse I've got here.
Okay. She's got Chris a spot on this amateur night.
Yeah, and Sam is now being Me Too'd.
Yeah, to an extent.
No, not to an extent at all. Her original interaction with him was utterly inappropriate. If the roles had been reversed, this is a guy doing his work and she's, oh, look at you and all that. It wasn't good at all. And now, effectively, she agrees to help out Chris, but sexual favours on Saturday will be required. That is heavily implied. I mean, I think that's exactly what she's after.
Still in a position to walk away and refuse her?
Not really. She's the one with power here. He's just a stuntman. She is abusing her position of power. She has something here, so she is trading a career for sexual favours. Anyway, where were we?
Chris is worried about where his father is, but it probably would be better if he didn't know.
Well, Sam finds him drunk and smoking at the bar in this roadhouse with an attitude that also stinks.
Yeah, it's a different room, so you can't see Chris, though you can hear him playing. And
this is really weird. Sam speaks to him and Ray claims that Chris was born premature and he's therefore weak, and that he is trying to make a man out of him.
Yeah, and also he was brought up by his mother after they separated and she didn't teach him to be a man.
Sam shakes his head and leaves as Chris takes the stage. He performs with, now, is this his band? It's weird because
it might just be a house band.
Yeah. They seem to know his songs.
It's still key and rhythm. And
alright, is that all? Just key and rhythm?
I have no idea.
Stop saying that. They seem pretty tight.
It's a jazz band, they can just improvise.
Yeah, key and rhythm, there you go. Anyway, he seems to be doing very well. Everyone is enjoying themselves, but he is devastated to see Ray come in just for a few moments and then turn and leave.
Indeed. Ray then speaks to Chris after the performance and tells him he's wasting his time. And they argue and Chris thumps him.
Yeah, which gains some sort of respect. I think he says at least he's got a punch on him.
Meanwhile, Chris is away to phone Rick.
Yes, on a phone outside, he tells him that he'll do the stunt the next day. Back at the apartment, Sam returns, and after looking at a photo of Chris and himself, Al appears, and Sam admits that something is bothering him about this leap, and he wants to leave. He's feeling edgy, uncomfortable.
I think it's the brothery thing, because he suddenly realises that when Al says it's tough being a big brother, that his own big brother has died.
Yeah, I think he suddenly understands that, comes to that realisation, that memory comes back, and a forlorn Al admits that he was killed in Vietnam.
Then he makes a really weird comment about hoping that Sam wouldn't get that memory back.
Yeah,
it's part of who he is.
It is. I mean, I don't know. Whilst Sam is leaping, is it perhaps it may be better for Sam not to have not to know what he's missing? You know, when he finally leaps back home, then surely that's when you want everything to. So this might make it easier.
Maybe.
If you, for example, Sam might not know. He's never asked. Is he married with kids?
I think it's who made these rules, because they didn't know he was going to lose his memory when he leapt.
Yeah, exactly. Why can't you tell him these things?
So why they talked about Sam being the one who made the rules back in the second or third episode.
Yeah,
but yet those rules weren't made on the basis that he was going to lose his memory.
No,
so I don't know.
Maybe the project have just thought that, you know, for his own sake, don't tell him about things.
Don't overwhelm him. Yeah, maybe it's probably Gushy's fault.
Yeah, damn Gushy. We see actually Sam, he's fighting to hold back his emotions at this point. And I think it's the next morning now, in Ray's yard. He's got a scrap yard or whatever it is, a car yard, where Sam arrives to see if Chris is with him.
No date?
What?
Well, you're usually dropping off some skirt this early in the morning.
Look, Chris didn't come home last night. I was hoping he came by here.
What for? To admire the damage?
I'm worried about him.
Well, if I know my boys, he's out with that little brunette. He'll be home in a couple of days.
What makes you so sure he'll come back?
The hell else is he gonna do? Be a musician?
Why not?
I thought we went all through this last night.
No, we didn't settle it. Chris was great.
Sure, he was good.
Well, he needed to hear that from you.
Look, that don't mean that I want him to go and ruin his life.
Yeah, but don't you see that's exactly what you're doing by forcing him to become a stuntman?
I don't know. You know, sometimes I find myself doing the same thing to Chris that my daddy did to me. I can't seem to stop myself. Your granddaddy was a stuntman, so I became a stuntman because I had to prove to him that I could do it, and I did. I don't know, I guess proving things is in the old stone blood, huh?
Like Chris proving he has to do that fire stunt.
That's a leap.
Yeah, I think so.
Also, it kind of seems like Ray's having a moment of reflection there, but I think he gets over it.
Very quickly.
Very quickly indeed. Over on the Disco Inferno set, asshole Rick is welcoming Chris.
Yeah, who shows up with Shannon, much to the director's delight. He's a bit of a creep as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he gets up on his little arm at some point here. No, that's later on. So first of all, Shannon and Chris have a chat.
Yeah, she's obviously worried and asks Chris if perhaps his father or brother should be there to check things
That's
out.
the wrong thing to say.
That, you know, you're not that exactly. Understandably, he thinks differently.
Could somebody better do this?
Yeah, someone more grown up and mature and perhaps a little bit better in bed.
I mean, I know I said that I like guys like you, but I didn't mean it.
Yeah, this is the wrong thing to say entirely. So we're a little bit later. Chris is on the first floor balcony as Rick quickly runs by the stunt, and we see that Chris is nervous, however states that he's ready.
Yeah, they're not going to have a rehearsal because they're short on time. Rick says they're just going to film this and let's go.
But no, I think he agrees. He says, yeah, what we'll do is we'll film the rehearsal, which is effectively not having one. But yeah, and the cameras start to roll as outside we see Sam and Ray jump from their car and rush to the set.
It's a nice car.
It's a nice car, yeah.
Sam has to hold Ray back as the set explodes and engulfs Chris in flame.
Something has clearly went wrong. There is panic as people flee and others try to put out the fire, which Sam runs into looking for his brother. Ray tries.
Yeah, Sam holds him back and he's taken away.
Yeah, two men.
And Al is able to guide Sam through the debris to where Chris is lying with his leg pinned beneath him, unconscious.
Why does Sam think that Ray can't help it? Ray's a stuntman for a start, right? He's more suited to this environment than Sam. He's not there to save Ray's life. It's Ray's.
He's not a fireman though. It's like,
well, neither Sam.
Yeah, Sam's going to have Al to help him.
He doesn't know that at this point. He just holds back the guy from helping his son.
It's Sam's job. If Ray saves him, Sam won't get to leap.
Well, Sam needs to be the hero here.
Anyhow, yeah, Al helps him find Chris. They unpin his leg, or Sam unpins his leg, and puts him in a fireman's lift and carries him to safety.
Yeah, just seconds before another explosion.
Indeed.
I'm not sure what sort of stuff they've got in this set. There's they get tanks of petrol on it.
I think whatever it was wasn't prepared properly.
No. Outside, Rick tries to thank Ray for showing up, but receives a punch in the face.
Fair enough.
Before they watch Chris come round in a gurney with a broken leg, as ideated by Sam.
Sam says, what you say, his leg might be broken. I think we wouldn't have checked that. Chris wakes up and has a quip for his dad about getting his stunt card.
Yes, and they drive off.
And Ray goes in the ambulance, and Tracy notes that Sam's ring is blue, which means he's in an ecstatic mood. It's quite interesting that they didn't give him any treatment for smoke inhalation.
No. Well,
you would now.
Well, for Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would have oxygen on, he'd be sitting in the back of a...
Oh, he'd be taken to the hospital as well to be checked over.
You would have thought. Later at home, with no Tracy to be seen, the three Stones and Shannon relax on a sofa.
Al appears, so he heads off to the kitchen, wondering why he hasn't leapt yet.
Sam says he's homesick and he's ready to leap home now.
He's looking a little brittle.
Al has been subdued throughout this episode. At this point, though, he has a photo to show Sam.
Yeah, I mean, do you think it's because they're trying to keep the focus on Sam's development here? They don't want Al to be... It's
almost like they've taken the mood from this whole, he's learned that his brother's died, but he's been in that mood since before he found out about it.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's the first time he's been a brother.
No.
In Kamikaze Kid, he was the little brother, but he was still a brother.
Sure.
There's been plenty of times he's talked about his sister.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. Yes, like I say, Al has brought this photo of Sam with his brother to show him, for which he is thanked, although Sam can't actually touch the photo.
No, it's a photo of Sam and Tom in his military uniform. I think, yeah, did you mention there that Al says, I shouldn't have done this?
Yeah, of course, he's always saying that.
Doesn't
He put the hieroglyphics in his
yeah.
dressing gown and stuff.
Sam's very emotional, obviously. And as you say, he tries to take this picture, but it's a hologram. And Al promises to save it for him for later. This raises a few questions for me. What do you mean, save it? All Sam's stuff should still be where Sam's stuff is in his house or whatever.
Who's touching it?
So who is touching it, and how did Al get hold of it?
I don't know. Maybe presumably Sam's wife gave it to him.
We don't even know if Sam's married.
No, but well,
in fact,
that's a guess.
Well, Donna is. Yeah, we know.
We don't know whether Donna's still around or not.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll save this for you. No, just leave my stuff alone. It'll be there when I get back.
It's in a tin. That's fine.
Yeah. And Al, are you going around am I married? Are you sniffing around my house with my wife?
It's funny he's never asked.
Yeah.
Are you married? Oh, I wouldn't say married. It's not a monogamous relationship.
Yeah. Back to the living room. Sam returns to the others and they talk about what Chris will do when he gets the plaster removed.
Well, you say they talk. Chris doesn't get any input into this.
Yep, again, another weakness with this.
Neither does Shannon, to be fair. Sam explains...
Well, Shannon shouldn't. It's not her. It's nothing to do with her.
Yeah, that's true. She's recently been out with her for 5 weeks or something.
Yeah.
A few days.
A few days, yeah. She doesn't get input into his career.
Sam explains that his future is in the music, but Ray says, how do you know what's going to happen in the future?
I think Ray even agrees that his music's quite good for a stuntman.
Yeah. He's been a bit damning him with faint praise. Watching the television, they see Gerald Ford disembarking from an aeroplane, and Al, who's still about, says this is the time he trips down the stairs when he gets to the bottom. And Sam then, seizing on this, without knowing if that's right or not, bets Chris's future on it. It's not his place to do that.
It's not his place at all. It's unbelievable. So, obviously, Ray agrees, and they watch, and Ford does follow. Therefore, Sam wins the bet, and Ray's now to have a musical career.
Chris has.
Chris has, yeah.
I mean, assume from the fact that Sam leaps that Ray will stick to this.
Yeah. So here's my big problem with this episode. Sam didn't change. Normally, opinions are changed, attitudes are changed, something really dramatically, fundamentally in an outlook or a...
There was no arc.
There was no arc here. Ray still wants Chris to be a stuntman. He's just simply lost a bet.
And we don't know what Chris wants to talk. He's not allowed to tell us.
So in future leaps, Sam can just sort of do this, manipulate it through bets that he would know, and that would be enough.
Did Chris at any point say he wanted to be a musician?
No, he was just playing. In fact, quite the opposite. He said, no.
It's a hobby.
It's a hobby. Oh, you should do it. You're really good. And Sam doesn't know enough about it.
Yeah, how many guitarists has he heard to know? He doesn't even remember he's got a brother.
And even that's the thing. And this is what I said at the start. Even if he is very good,
it's not an easy career.
Music is not a meritocracy. There's plenty of people who are garbage and have made more money than people with better or who are more talented. So it's no guarantee of anything. You could, in fact, end up entirely unhappy because you spend your entire life trying to be a musician and never quite make it. The stunt career, I have no issue with this. Ray does, I think, love his family. It's a family business. And it's quite a hard business to get into.
Yeah, he's got an in for him. He's got nepotism.
An in. In fact, I think, that's one of the things. I've watched a few interviews over the years with stuntmen and things like that. And it is very much an industry where you need to know someone, a bit like, train drivers here or whatever. You don't just get in, family members get in, you need the nod and the wink. It's a closed shop. So, yeah, he's in here already. Of course, it's appears to be a dangerous line of work, but maybe not any more than a firefighter or a policeman who could get into trouble. It's very controlled, or a sportsman.
Perfectly legitimate career.
It's a perfectly legitimate career he has here, and he wanted to do it and enjoyed it, and that was his goal at the start of the episode. So, Sam, if it was just about him, see, that's the thing. He's not Buddy Holly, as far as we're aware.
Yeah, he's not a seminal musician that's going to change history.
No. So if Sam had just, for example, held him hostage for 48 hours so he couldn't die in that 48 hours.
Yeah.
Would that have been enough?
No, because he would still have been a stuntman.
No, but it was to stop him dying, not being a stuntman.
No, because when he stopped him dying, he didn't leap. That was just what they thought, and it turned out not to be the thing. But I think a better outcome would be if he had earned his father's respect, and his father then would respect Chris's choice. That would have been the outcome that made sense. Of course,
that's what should have happened.
Whatever Chris's choice was. And
yes.
He didn't even have to give us his choice.
Precisely. But no, Ray loses a bet and that's it. Unsatisfying.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Sam leaps into a sailor suit and thinks he's Popeye.
Yeah, we'll get to that next week.
We will. That's the end.
It is.
Chris plays us out. We got a wee bit of extra. Which made me think, is that an actual musician? But no.
As I said at the start of the podcast, a sort of flimsy, lightweight episode that I didn't really buy into and had problems with the reason for the leaping. So yeah, not one of my favourites. It should have been.
Do you think that Chad and Tracy wound up together?
Yeah, I think so. That's the only thing.
Why not?
I don't care. That's the thing. Their relationship wasn't important enough either. There was nothing significant about it.
No. Any other thoughts?
Not really, no.
No. It's a shame.
Too warm.
Missed opportunity, perhaps. Anyhow, some trivia. It was originally aired in the US on the 27th of September 1989, but in the UK it was the final episode of season 1, and then there was a 19-month gap.
Okay.
Directed by Gilbert M. Shilton. You've heard his name before. This was the second of his 4 episodes, so you can hear more about him if you go back to the podcast for The Right Hand of God.
Okay. No trivia, no?
I come to that after the people.
Do you? Right, okay.
As always. Have you not listened to this podcast before?
Huh?
Paul Brown wrote the episode, the second of 13, so you can go back and hear about him in Kamikaze Kid, season 1. Ray Stone was played by Michael Green. This was his only Quantum Leap episode. He's probably best known for his movie work, appearing in films like Batteries Not Included, Return of the Killer Tomatoes, Play It Again Sam, which is a nice connection, and To Live and Die in L.A., as well as occasional television work on shows like Baywatch, Mission Impossible, The Twilight Zone and The A-Team. He died in 2020 when he was 86.
Well, can I give you some trivia about him then?
Sure, if you've got anything more.
Yeah. He was very good friends with David Carradine, who was the star of Kung Fu, and in fact Michael Green was in 2 episodes of Kung Fu himself, and obviously at the start we had Kung Fu Fighting playing.
Which was not by Carradine. That's why I didn't mention it, but yes, it's a good connection for themes. Chris Cam played Chris. He spells Chris differently. This was his only Quantum Leap appearance. He also appeared on shows like Murder, She Wrote, 21 Jump Street to Married with Children, as well as a run on Coach as Stuart Rosebrook. He played Billy Claiborne in the 1994 Wyatt Earp film, which is almost a Star Trek connection.
Yeah.
And he's now 57 years old, but he's only had 1 screen credit since 2005. Kelly Williams played Shannon, a more familiar face perhaps to some people. This is one of her early roles, her only Quantum Leap appearance, but she's gone on to be a familiar face. She's in The Practice, Ally McBeal, The Mentalist, and Lie to Me, amongst other things. She's now 52 years old and remains active. Arnisha Walker played Tracy.
The sex pest.
This was her only appearance on the show. She's been in things like Nurses, that was her main thing. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, NYPD Blue, and Everybody Loves Raymond. She's somewhere between 61 and 68 years old, depending on which source you believe. Wikipedia says it's
another
in dispute.
Quantum Leap actor lying about their age.
Well, we had a listener contact us to say that other girl wasn't lying about her age.
Yeah, but that's only based on what she said.
Peter Onorati played Rick, the director. I'm not going to use rhyming slang. Again, his only Quantum Leap appearance. He was in Goodfellas, and he appeared in series like Outer Limits, ER, 24, and Monk. He's now 69, still performing. Some little bits and pieces of trivia. Some streaming services don't show this episode due to music rights.
Understandable. In fact, I guarantee now they're thinking, I wish we hadn't used all that music. It's a pain in the backside. It also raises the question of what type of rights they got to begin with. They obviously didn't get in perpetuity or... Yep. Anyway... As we mentioned during the episode, there is footage from the actual movie Earthquake spliced in with Sam's stunt work on the set. However, there's a bit of an issue because that film came out in 1974 and this is set in 1976. Okay. On the same theme, Conehead's episode of Saturday Night Live doesn't air until 1978. Village People don't have an album out till 1977 and he's got their tape in his car. And you see both Bill Murray and Chevy Chase on Saturday Night Live, but they never appeared in the same episode together. Yeah, okay. Yeah. These things with the dates happen in a lot of episodes. So I wonder whether it's because they don't care, because they thought folk won't check, or if it's done deliberately, if there's some reason why they're slightly out with some of these things. Anyhow, in terms of things that we learned, Sam had an older brother called Tom who died in Vietnam and who was an important part of his life growing up. Sam won a Nobel Prize. We got a bit more about Al being an astronaut and being prolific in the 70s. Yes. Do you have anything more? Nothing to add other than Al always wanted to be in the movies. Of course. Next time we have the Americanization of Mashiko, which sounds problematic and potentially treacherous. It does, and also a bit of a pain when we're writing notes and file names for podcasts, etc.
Indeed. So Sam in this one will have to help the bride he's brought home from the Korean War find her place in America. So we'll see you in 1953.
Until then,
Cheerio.
bye bye.